Well, thank you, Maya. It's really a joy to be with you again. And I think we were last together in May on that very sacred mountain. And what I have appreciated so much about Dharmagiri is your ability to hold, different practice traditions in such an authentic way. So, bringing that real deep respect of African spirituality and Buddhism together into the land that has held, people for thousands and thousands of years. So I feel very young in this practice, coming to join you today. And yeah, I'd love to greet everybody because as I say, there's people who are new to me and friends who I've known for a while. So Hayley, lovely to have you join us from London, I think. And Louise, great that you're here. Jenny, Anesu and friend, partner. And it looks like chaos with my bad eyesight, but I think it's Chad. Hi, and then Queen, welcome. Liz, we were on retreat together. Jane, great to have you here, and I know we'll be meeting soon. Lenka, wonderful to see your name. Maybe I'll see your face later if bandwidth allows. And Nokwanda. Oh, I need my glasses. Nokwanda. And Andre, Moira, we haven't met for years, but you're always in my heart. And then Debs and someone mysteriously called iPhone. So we are a lovely, lovely group. And yeah, I was just saying to Maya, there's been a few challenges in my life of late, quite a few significant losses. I think those of you who've been in the Buddhist community for a while know Rob Nan, and he was my first, I think he was my first mindfulness teacher, and he passed away a couple of days ago. So I wanted actually to share a compassion practice today, which comes particularly from the lineage that he held and comes from his teacher, Akon Rinpoche. And whenever I facilitate compassion, I first want us to feel resourced, because compassion has its own challenges. Obviously, it gives us the courage that Maya spoke about, but it also takes us into a really tender place, because it invites us to look headlong at difficulties, either our own or those in the world around us. And there are many. We cannot shy away from it. There are challenges that we witness each and every day. And I once heard a teacher saying the trouble with compassion is it's like being a firefighter, because in order to go into the building, you have to open the door. And when you open the door, in order to go in and put out the fire, all that heat rushes out at you. So to cultivate compassion, we often feel like a real heat of the difficulties of life. So with that proviso, what I like to do is first of all start with something that can resource us. So I'd like you to settle for a moment, making yourself just a little bit more comfortable in whatever position you find yourself. And maybe resourcing yourself initially simply by feeling the earth beneath. This ancient land over which people have walked for generations and generations. Courageous, strong, resilient people. So noticing all the places where your body connects with the earth. And wherever you can, soften a little. Maybe a sense of getting slightly heavier. And where there are things that are a little bit tight that aren't able to soften, then bring a kind of tender acceptance there. And having grounded, I'd love you to cast your mind back to the day that's just been. And seeing if your mind can light upon, just like a butterfly, light upon something during the day that offered you some sort of delight, contentment, ease, a quality that felt resourcing. Perhaps a message from a friend. Perhaps you took a walk and saw some new flowers in bloom. Perhaps you're in Northern Hemisphere and the leaves might be changing color. Sometimes when we are experiencing difficulty, it's hard to shift attention to those things which can bring us momentary delight. And if there's nothing that springs to mind from the day, maybe softening in to that sense that there's a whole community here right now. A community that understands the importance of being together, of taking time out from daily life. Maybe that's something that can kind of settle into your bones and allow you to feel a little more resourced. So having found your own personal resource, I'd love if you could type it into the chat box, if that's possible on the device that you're on, just so we can kind of connect with the different things that do resource us as a community. And for me today, it was seeing these tiny little purple flowers. I took a walk on the copy just before this session, and yeah, there's suddenly spring is arriving and there's a sea of green grass, but interspersed are these little tiny purple flowers. And it just reminded me of that resilience of the natural world. It keeps popping up. It keeps offering us little displays of compassion, even when underneath the soil has been burnt. And that's really what I witnessed on the copy, the dark soil from the burning of last year, or from the winter time. And now this bright green growth. So let's see, Nokwanda, someone who shared that your dad taught her to make a trifle. Oh, yes. So a recognition of a gift that was given and from your own father. And Jane, forehead kisses from your partner, flowers springing up in unlikely places. Oh, yeah. And Moira, a hard day when I looked up and saw 3 weaver nests with a beautiful weaver bird looking at me, felt completely restored. Yeah, that's wonderful. Jenny, playing with your 9-year-old godchild, Georgie, this morning. Oh, children are just the best. Smiles from different people. Thanks, Maya. Of course, in the middle of retreat, there's, I'm sure, many blessings. And a meal cooked by your son. Feeling an appreciation for your body. Thank you. Newsletter. Thanks, Haley. Yeah, that's why you're here. And Chad saw a chameleon relaxing on a big tree of yellow bank roses. Oh, that really is a privilege to see a chameleon. How wonderful. Acts of service. Oh, thank you, everyone. And just check in with your own self right now. You know, how do you feel when you share these things with others? We get that, you know, what in the teachings of the immeasurables, is that empathetic joy, the joy or the resourcing we can get from being with others. All right, so the next way I like to prepare for compassion is just a gesture of compassion to ourselves. So take out your hands and start giving your own thumb a little bit of care. Maybe these fingers have been working hard today in the garden, on the keyboard, in the pots, washing dishes. Just find your way to work along your hands and appreciate all that they do. And there may be sore spots, just really where you find a little sore spot, treat it with absolute tenderness. And maybe have a gaze at these hands, the things they've touched, held, the people that they have cared for. Remember to move to the other side so that you get a double whammy of care. Gentle pressure into the palms. And you can feel different places around the joints. Often you want to be more careful, a sort of gentle compassion. But in the meat of the hand, you can be a bit firmer. And we often talk about these different aspects of compassion, the kind of fierce quality that cuts through. And then, of course, the real gentle, nurturing, yin-style compassion. Okay. And then bring those hands together in that gesture that starts nearly every spiritual tradition. And within those hands, imagine holding something precious, your own precious heart. And I said to Maya that I may chant for you, so here it is. Glorious, precious root Lama, above my head on a lotus moon seat, you care for me with great kindness. Please bestow the siddhis of body, speech, and mind. So bringing to mind your own teacher, Lama, friend, companion, whoever offers you great kindness. And in their honor, we request the siddhis or the superpowers of wise action, of kind speech, and of clear thoughts. And we take this intention into our practice this evening. So once again, feeling grounded onto the earth. And if at any point you prefer to lie down, often this practice is taught in that way. So if you want to turn off the screen and come into constructive rest with the knees bent, you are absolutely welcome to do that. If it feels comfortable to sit upright, and really get a sense that you're held and that the spine can draw upwards like a blade of grass, growing up towards the light, soft yet strong, and able to move when it needs to. And we'll begin by breathing in a particular way. So breathe in a slightly deeper breath than normal and count for however long it takes, maybe 3 or 4 or 5. And then you hold the breath for that same count. And as you breathe out, let the breath really release quite firmly through the mouth, like a sigh. And imagine that you're breathing out almost the way you would empty a glass of dirty water, just washing the breath out and taking with it whatever is no longer of benefit. So breathing in to your own count, holding the breath, and then a lovely firm release. A sense of emptying out the day, whatever is not useful right in this moment. And 2 more of those. And now allowing your body to find its own soothing breathing rhythm. And bringing a very intimate attention to the way the body moves around the breath. Perhaps you feel a slight swelling down in the abdomen, an expansion in the ribs. Or maybe for you, it's a sensation right at the tip of the nose of the breath entering. So without regulating the breath, we bring a witnessing quality, an intimate examination of how the breath moves its way in and out of this body of ours. And as your attention and the breath moves around the body, you may notice places where there's a tightness or a tingling. Perhaps there's warmth or coolness. Noticing any physical sensation that is presenting itself to you right now. It might be an old injury, or a place that feels a little contracted or stuck. Allowing yourself to turn towards whatever you find within this living, breathing body. And often when we explore physical sensation, we may notice that there's a certain emotional tone that seems to walk beside it. Maybe a tight stomach seems to open the door to anxiety or fear. Maybe a contraction around the chest feels linked in some way to sadness or grief, disappointment or loss. Once again, turning towards that, allowing whatever you find to be here. And of course, there may be thoughts, very likely fast thoughts, slow thoughts, thoughts of the past or the future. Without getting entangled in any stories, witnessing, opening to the flow of thoughts that move through the mind. And having got a sense of what is present for you right here, right now, your own authentic experience, nothing fabricated, I offer you now this practice that was taught by Akon Rinpoche as part of the Tara Rokpa therapy. And the practice is called openness, a practice of compassion. So we begin with a visualization. And you imagine in front of you a vast sky, maybe a nighttime sky with millions of stars. Or perhaps a bright daytime sky, vivid blue, clouds floating through. And within that vast open space, imagining a gateway with a door that opens outwards. You can take some time to create that image. Maybe something pops up spontaneously. Or perhaps it takes a little while. Whatever doorway or gateway appears in your mind, work with that. Imagining it opening outwards. And the next step of this practice is to imagine any of your experiences, physical, emotional, or the thoughts that have been moving through the mind. Imagine breathing them out through that gateway. And as this flow of things, of feelings, of sensations moves out, as soon as it passes through the gateway, it's transformed into a golden light of compassion. So whatever you have to offer, an aching back, a warm, open heart, whatever is present for you, breathe that out. Imagine it transforming at the gateway into this vast, expanding golden light of compassion. And perhaps what you are breathing out is something tender, something vulnerable, a difficult emotion. As it moves through that gateway, imagine that golden light encircling round and touching anyone with that same difficult experience as you. This golden light brings them whatever they need. If it's a physical struggle, the golden light soothes that in some way. If it's an emotional difficulty, imagine all those beings being encircled by this golden light. Allowing that difficulty to be held within this compassion. Imagine that it could bring to people whatever they most need. If they're hungry, it somehow satiates that hunger. If they're grieving, it eases that grief. Whatever your personal experience, breathe that out, allowing it to touch others who have a similar experience. Until that entire sky that you visualize is filled with golden light, offering compassion to all beings everywhere. Offering to them whatever they most want and need. And as it fills the entire sky, sensing it circling around and also embracing you. Whatever your experience, it can be transformed into compassion, which can encircle back and hold you for a while. Noting any sensation in your own body, your heart, as you imagine being encircled, cocooned, held within this light of compassion. And when it feels complete for you, allowing the visualization to dissolve, and we'll rest together in simple mindfulness. Maybe using the breath as your anchor, or the sensation of the earth beneath you. And recognizing this capacity that we all have, both to feel the pain, the difficulties of life, just like that one hand. And then we also have the capacity to care for that hand. So we're both the experiencer and the one who is able to take care of the experience. So not only does this enhance our capacity to care for ourselves at time of difficulty, it also opens our capacity to recognize difficult experiences in others. And rather than staying with the empathic resonance, that ability to connect with someone else's struggle, we again recognize we have this capacity to care, to offer compassion, to breathe it around them, to imagine them held, supported, able to find their own inner resources to move through the time of difficulty. We can also imagine that more childlike part of us. Again, like the one hand, a hand that maybe is sore or aching or tired out. And then we have our adult that is able to hold and support. So these practices of compassion are an antidote in some ways to the painful experiences of empathy. They invite us to connect, to trust, to know that when we hold with deep presence, people find their own strength and they can navigate their way through. And of course, our mindfulness practice is a way to cultivate that presence, that willingness to turn towards whatever our experience and to respond with kindness, with care. So if you're lying down, you may want to start to stretch a little, wiggling toes and fingers. If you're sitting, then maybe reaching the arms up and overhead. It's finding a way to, return to the holding of this body. Again, another kind of layer that's able to hold our heart, hold our mind. And then, of course, we're open to any sharing, any experience, any questions.
You're also welcome to write in the chat. So you can just raise your physical hand, or you can raise your icon hand, emoji hand, or you can just write in the chat.
And we also honor silence. Particularly, I find after compassion practices, there can be, a tenderness that is not quite ready to find words. Nakanda says, you needed this. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Moira. It's actually, it's not so common for me to use visualizations. But having had permission from the Tara Rockpa therapist to do this, I thought I wanted to share it. But some of you who are familiar with Buddhist practice probably recognize there's a similarity with Tonglen. This willingness to breathe in whatever is painful in our own life and others, and then breathe out compassion. So I guess it's a way, the visualization, when I've done it for myself, is kind of, I guess it offers this sense of having a bit more spaciousness, because often when we are suffering, we contract, everything feels tight. The issues we're working with seem to take up our entire body, heart, especially, and mind. So I guess the visualization of the vast night sky, and I was thinking of you at Dharmagiri, where you really get a beautiful sky. It kind of opens us into that capacity of vastness, where problems, although they're the same size, once our awareness is bigger, they seem a little bit smaller. Oh, thank you, Queen. And Moira says, so lovely to be reminded of visualization, which we don't do so much. Yes, Tibetan practice does have, well, I wonder sometimes if it's the link between the kind of Buddhism and the shamanistic Bon tradition. You know, there's a bit more visualizing of the deities, and I've been doing a lot of Tara recently, you know, freedom from fear. And Tara, of course, she can be the gentle, nurturing compassion, but she also has a fierce component of, I guess, similar to the archetype of Kali that some of you may be familiar with. Are there any voices that would like to share? Yeah, Maya.
No, I often struggle with visualizing. I guess I consider myself not to be a very visual person, but the sky visualization I found very powerful. There's something very simple about just bringing the sky to mind, because there's such a feeling that comes with it that's very, very clear. So that was powerful. And also really appreciated just sending out my experience. I really connected with that. And it felt, yes, it did, reminded me of Tonglen, which I've practiced before. But just, yeah, it's very powerful to just release your experience and offer it out. So thank you very much.
Deb's powerful and lovely. Oh, I'm so glad. And expansive. Thanks, Anesu. That's, yeah. There's another way I've been doing Tonglen on retreats, because I often teach moving practices, because, you know, I find with modern life, especially our Zoom life, where we only really have a head and a torso, we forget that we have some legs as well. I've been doing like a Tonglen where you step forward and back, and you kind of offer out like that, and then you bring the difficulties back into the heart and imagine the heart transforming them into something that then you can offer. And it's this kind of beautiful forward and back movement. And yeah, I thought we would stay sitting today, but that might be something that works for, you know, for different people. If you find the visualizations hard, whereas in an embodied way, you can imagine, like, what do I have to offer? I have my innate goodness. I have my compassion. I have that caring heart, and I can just sort of send it out. And then I can take in all of that difficulty because of the knowledge that the heart, or the heart mind, or our bodhicitta has the ability to transform it in a flash into that offering, that golden light. You know, I've heard people a little nervous sometimes about Tonglen because they imagine breathing in everyone's problems. But if we know that we have a heart that is filled with innate goodness, then, yeah, nothing stays stuck. It moves through us and it goes out. So that's another version. Maybe, Janae, for you, I know you're in embodied work, so it might be something that is helpful. I just wonder if anyone, has any question or difficulty that you have experienced with compassion practices. Because, we can maybe share ideas. Does anyone recognize that metaphor that I used at the start, where you're opening the door to the pain, and then poof, you kind of get like a blast of that heat. Yeah, I see Haley nodding.
So I've been finding a little bit that being compassionate has been met with a lot of selfishness and abusiveness and hostility, and that's been making me feel quite sort of reducing my compassion. So it's not necessarily a compassion practice, but just in my day-to-day life, just coming up with a lot of selfishness and abusiveness. So I've just been feeling like I've been closing in quite tightly, and so it's kind of nice just to let it go and just to breathe it. I think that thing that you were saying about holding it really tightly, I think I've been doing that for a little while. But just being able to just breathe it and, just let it get into the ether has been really helpful.
So may I clarify, Haley, is it that you feel when you're compassionate to others that you get their sort of selfishness back?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just not everywhere, but I've just been bumping up against it a little too often. I haven't felt that my compassion has met with compassion, but more met with quite a lot of selfishness and taking advantage of that compassion. And so
Thank you.
Vulnerable, but also quite angry, I think. And definitely holding it in as well. So, yeah.
I'm sure others resonate. And it's interesting because there is that distinction between the kind of the yin and the yang compassion. So the gentle, nurturing compassion sometimes does, I think maybe people's vulnerability makes them actually act out against it. So sometimes a fiercer compassion is what's required. Or what I actually prefer these days is just to offer the compassion in my own private space, in the room. And then when I meet that person, somehow my heart is a little bit more open, or I'm a bit clearer because there's nothing that's sort of so tight. And then, the conversation can just find its way based on the actual situation. So the compassion doesn't need to be anything that anyone else knows about, but it can be a way of giving you like a courage actually to speak and to clear things. And what's that lovely quote? I have put it in the book. It's the Dalai Lama quote about Tonglen practice. And he says, I don't know if it helps others, but it helps me, and that is of great benefit. Or it helps clear my mind or open my heart, and and then I can be of great benefit. So yeah, it can be purely for ourselves and sort of freeing untangling the difficult strands that are there in so many relationships. Thank you. Thank you for speaking up for probably what many of us have experienced or are going through. Oh, the little chat box is speaking to me. Yeah, so much the same experience from Moira. Yeah, thank you. Oh.
Yeah. Thank you, Haley. Oh, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, I don't think that often it's intentional. I just think it's also a product of the general mood and times. And I think that people are just caught up in their own stories and narratives. And so what's coming out is a sort of like inward looking, ego driven kind of response. I don't think people are being intentionally abusive or taking advantage. I think it's just a manifestation of, I think, everybody just trying to cope in a world gone crazy. So sometimes it's not about taking it personally, it's just about managing it, I guess, without thinking it's directed at you. It just is what it is. And you just happen to put yourself in that space by being compassionate, by offering compassion, by offering yourself. So in a way, you get angry at yourself for putting yourself in that place. and without blaming people. It's like, so there's a kind of mixed thing. It's not, I don't think it's an intentional thing that's going on. I think people are just trying to cope in this crazy world. So yeah.
And that's where, for it to circle back and really wrap you up in the most beautiful, whatever you need, that's also compassion to all beings, includes ourselves. We are one of those 8 billion humans and zillion billion other beings. I thought I saw another hand or a...
Jenny.
Yes, Jenny.
Yeah. No, thank you for this. And what I'm thinking of is how the word compassion is so often used as something that's soft and gentle, and not taken as something that is actually fierce and determined, and often a difficult practice, and how alchemical it is. But also that we can't necessarily know the resonances of our compassion practice, and that it's actually timeless, that the effects are not necessarily something that we will feel, or people we're practicing with or for will feel. So I'm always comforted by the fierceness, the alchemy, and the timelessness of we can't quantify it or measure it or know the impacts of it, which I find very powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been surprised with my own practice how much courage seems to come through compassion. I didn't link them together before. Before trying to bring those two worlds, like the activist world and the meditation world, together. And I suddenly realized that compassion gives so much courage, because you're able to speak very clearly without any... in the Lojong teachings, they talk about the twist. You're not trying to manipulate. You're just kind of speaking clearly whatever is your truth, and understanding that it will resonate with some, it won't resonate with others. So yeah, that sense of things not being personal, but having the courage to speak out, or if you see harm being done, having the courage to name it, and to name the action, but not demonize the person doing the action. That's sort of, this sort of skillful courage that has the foundation in compassion. And I'm definitely not fully there yet. But every now and again, I notice that, I've said something that's kind of clear and straight and could be perceived as unkind, and yet I truly believe it's for the benefit of the situation. I had to fire a couple of people from a retreat center. And but it felt like the most compassionate thing that could be done. Oh, I hope you don't have that, Maya, not in your beautiful mountain. Oh, sorry, I've tried to keep my eye on the chat. Maya, also let me know if I'm missing anything. Okay, so Tumi say you could relate. Thank you. And Jana has to leave. Oh, okay. Well, I'm so glad you were here with us. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Lucy, for all the heart wisdom that you've offered us. And before Lucy will close us off with a sharing of blessings or gratitude. But first, I'd like to share my gratitude on behalf of all of us at Dharmagiri. One of our directors, Moira, is also here. And yeah, deep gratitude to Lucy for sharing your time, your energy, and your heart with us. And deep gratitude to each of you for joining us. And I really feel very encouraged and nourished. And I feel like there's something really important. All of us are in our boxes, in our different homes. But as we do this practice together, something magical also happens. And I really do feel that our energies connect into each other, and that we're supporting each other to build this compassion, fierce compassion, compassion that's not that really is meeting the world as it is. So yeah, so thank you. And these sessions are held every month. They are offered freely, but we also welcome any donations. I'm just sending a link into the box, which is a link if you'd like to offer a donation to the session. But thank you for your presence, which is generosity in itself. And next month, our next session will be on the 1st of November, and it will be hosted, guided by Ofosu Jones Quarterly, also goes by Born Eye, who's a musician. He's a hip hop artist and a meditation teacher based in the US. And actually, he just recently went on tour with Plum Village Monastics. So he's joining us to facilitate our next session. It's the same Zoom link, but we'll also send out the information on Instagram and through our newsletter. So thank you, Lucy. Please send us out.
Oh, thank you. I just had to laugh. A friend the other day said, Lucy, you're asking people to do two really difficult, unpopular things. The first one is take the journey inward and take radical personal responsibility. And then the second one is you're asking people to look out at the suffering of the world. And we don't want to do that. So she just reminded me that you don't get famous doing this work, but you do meet people who can really hold and support each other on the path. And yeah, seeing your faces and sensing the people behind the names, I have deep gratitude for all of you who are willing to do those two very challenging things: turn within and turn out with a compassionate heart. So here is the blessing prayer. By this merit may I obtain omniscience, defeat the enemy wrongdoing, and so free all beings from the ocean of existence, with its stormy waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Precious mind of awakening, may it arise in those who are without it, and never fade from those who hold it, but continually grow from strength to strength. May the glorious Lama's lotus feet be firm. May bliss and joy fill the reaches of space as we gather the accumulations and purify obscurations. May I and all without exception be swiftly brought to Buddhahood. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Oh, and Chad has put a lovely message. Thank you to everyone for being here, seeing the group is growing. So grateful for the grounding practice, sharing the visualizations of the sky and the door. Thank you for being able to help open that door to share different kinds of compassion with different types of people. So I'm feeling really fulfilled right now. My cup is overflowing with wholesomeness and blissfulness. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh, what a divine message. Thank you. Thank you, Tumi and Debs and Queen and Maya, of course, for inviting me into your sacred circle. And Haley, see you soon back in this very yoga studio. Haley teaches here. Oh, thanks Anesu and Nokwanda and iPhone 4, Katlecho, Liz, Sean, Moira. Oh, Debs. I hope I haven't missed everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings, everyone.
Well,
Bye.
thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much.